I found the suicide note on level B7, and that was when I knew something was fundamentally wrong with Ravens Gate parking. My name is Stiles. I am 23 years old, and I have been working the night shift at this underground parking garage in downtown Millhaven for exactly 8 months. 8 months of fluorescent lights that buzz like dying insects. 8 months of concrete walls that seem to absorb sound rather than reflect it. And 8 months of following rules that make absolutely no sense until you break them. Let me be clear about something from the start. I am not the kind of person who believes in ghosts. I studied engineering at community college before dropping out. I read science articles for fun, and I have always prided myself on being rational. But rationality does not help you when you are 7 levels underground at 3 a.m. and you hear footsteps coming from a level that does not exist. The job posting had been straightforward enough. Night attendant needed for downtown parking facility. 12-hour shifts, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., 6 nights a week. The pay was almost double what any other parking attendant position offered in the city, which should have been my first warning sign. Good pay usually means dangerous work, difficult work, or work that nobody else wants to do. I found out it was the third option. My supervisor, Chris, was a man in his late 50s with gray hair and the kind of exhausted eyes that suggested he had seen things he would rather forget. He trained me for exactly 3 nights before handing me a laminated card and a key ring with more keys than I could count. "Read these rules every single night before your shift," he said, tapping the laminated card with one yellowed fingernail. "Do not think they are suggestions. Do not think you can skip one because it seems silly. Do not think you know better." The card listed 14 rules in small printed text. I remember thinking they were oddly specific, the kind of thing someone writes after something terrible has already happened. Rules for night shift attendants at Ravens Gate parking. 1. Never go below level B5 between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. to what to. If you hear your name called from an empty level, do not respond and do not investigate. The elevator to level B6 will sometimes open on its own. Do not look inside. Close the doors immediately. If a car's headlights turn on by themselves, leave that level for at least 20 minutes. Do not make eye contact with anyone you see on level B4 after midnight. The security cameras on level B7 must be checked every hour, but never remain watching the footage for more than 60 seconds. If you find personal belongings that do not belong to any current vehicle owner, take them to the incinerator in the maintenance room. Do not keep them. Do not take them home. And do not put them in the lost and found. There is no level B8. If the elevator display shows B8, do not exit. Press the emergency stop button and wait for it to correct itself. The stairwell between B5 and B6 echoes strangely. If you hear your own footsteps repeated 3 times instead of once, walk backwards up the stairs without turning around. Office lights must remain on all night. If they turn off, turn them back on immediately and do not look at the windows. If the temperature drops suddenly on any level, evacuate that level and mark it closed for maintenance. Never follow the sound of crying, no matter how real it sounds. The bathroom on level B3 locks from the inside only. If you find it locked from the outside, call Chris immediately. Do not attempt to open it. If you see someone who looks exactly like you, leave the building immediately and do not return until your next scheduled shift. Chris watched me read through the list twice, his expression unreadable. "Questions?" he asked. I had about 100 questions, but I asked the most obvious one. "What happens if I break one of these rules?" "Honestly, I do not know." He lit a cigarette despite the no smoking sign on the wall behind him. "I have never broken one. But the guy before you did, and we found his truck abandoned on level B4 with the engine still running and his phone on the dashboard. He had been in the middle of texting his wife." Just stopped mid-sentence. What did he text? Chris exhaled smoke slowly. He wrote, "Something is wrong with the mirrors here. I can see myself, but I'm not moving the same way I am." That was it. We found the phone, the truck, his wallet, his keys. But we never found him. Did you call the police? Of course we did. They searched for 3 days. Brought dogs, thermal cameras, the whole thing. Found nothing. Officially, he is a missing person. Unofficially? Chris shrugged. This building has been here since 1952. It has been through 4 different owners. Every single one of them has reported incidents. Strange noises, people vanishing, equipment malfunctioning in ways that should not be possible. The current owner bought it cheap at an auction and decided the best solution was to write up a list of rules and pay people enough that they would follow them. I looked down at the laminated card again. This is insane. The pay is good, Chris said simply. Follow the rules and you will be fine. Probably. That probably should have sent me running, but I needed the money. Student loans do not care whether your workplace is haunted, and rent in Millhaven is not cheap. So I took the job, took the keys, and took the rules seriously. The first month was almost boring. I checked tickets, helped the occasional late-night driver find their car, and monitored the security cameras. The building was exactly what it appeared to be. 7 levels of underground parking with room for about 400 vehicles. The architecture was standard 1950s industrial, all concrete and steel beams, with that particular shade of institutional green paint that looked sickly under fluorescent lighting. But there were small things that bothered me. The elevator to level B6, for instance, really did open on its own. Usually around 1 a.m. I would hear the bell chime and turn to see the doors sliding open to reveal an empty elevator car. The first time it happened, I almost walked over to look inside before remembering Rule 3. Instead, I pressed the close button from my desk, and the doors slid shut obediently. The second time, I noticed something odd. The elevator car that appeared was not quite right. The walls were the same industrial green, but the lighting was different. Dimmer, more amber than the harsh white of our normal elevators. And there was a smell, faint but distinct, like old copper and something sweetly rotten. I pressed the close button faster that time. The security cameras were another issue. Level B7 was mostly empty. We only used it for long-term storage and employee vehicles. The camera footage should have been boring, just empty parking spaces and support pillars casting long shadows. But sometimes, if I watched for more than the recommended 60 seconds, I would see movement in the static. Just for a frame or two, something would pass through the edge of the screen, something tall and wrong. I made sure to never watch longer than 60 seconds after that. It was during my 3rd month that I met Max. He was one of the maintenance workers who came in during the day shift to handle repairs and cleaning. Max was around my age, maybe a year or 2 older, with the kind of perpetual tan that suggested he spent his days off hiking or surfing. He had an easy smile and seemed completely unbothered by the building's reputation. "Oh yeah, the ghost parking garage," he said when I mentioned the rules during a brief overlap in our shifts. "I have heard all about it. Bunch of nonsense if you ask me." "You work here and you think it is nonsense?" "I work here during the day," Max pointed out. "Plenty of people around, lights on, normal stuff. All the weird things supposedly happen at night, right? That is just your brain playing tricks on you. Isolation, fluorescent lights, the hum of electrical systems, that stuff messes with your head." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But Max had never been on level B4 after midnight. He had never seen what I had seen. It started with the cars. Around 1:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, I was doing my rounds when I noticed a sedan on level B4 with its headlights on. Not running lights, but full headlights, bright enough to cast harsh shadows across the concrete pillars. The car was a 10-year-old Honda Civic, dark blue with a parking permit from a law firm downtown. I approached it slowly, fishing for my master key in case I needed to turn off the battery. But as I got within 10 feet of the vehicle, the headlights brightened suddenly, almost blindingly. Then they began to flash, on, off, in a rapid pattern that made my eyes water. I remembered Rule 4 and backed away immediately. The headlights stopped flashing the moment I stepped into the stairwell. I marked level B4 as closed for maintenance and did not return for 25 minutes. When I came back, the car was dark and cold, as if nothing had happened at all. But there were handprints on the inside of the windshield, small and smudged, as if someone had been pressing against the glass from inside the vehicle. The car owner picked up their vehicle the next morning without incident. I checked the security footage from that night and saw nothing unusual. The headlights never turned on, not on camera, but I knew what I had seen, and I knew those handprints had been real. I started keeping a journal of incidents after that, small things mostly, the sound of footsteps on empty levels, elevators stopping on floors I had not pressed, the temperature dropping suddenly in parking zone C on level B3, cold enough that I could see my breath despite the heaters running full blast. I never mentioned any of it to the day shift workers. What was I supposed to say? Hey, the building comes alive at night and maybe tries to kill people, but it is fine during the day, so do not worry. Instead, I followed the rules, kept my head down, and collected my paychecks. But then Ben started working nights too. Ben was hired to help with the workload during the week. He was older than me, maybe 45, with a beer gut and a Boston accent that made every sentence sound vaguely aggressive. He had worked security at a hospital for 20 years before getting laid off, and needed something to pay the bills while he looked for better work. Chris trained him the same way he had trained, 3 nights of instruction and a laminated rule card. But I could tell from the start that Ben was not taking it seriously. "These rules are ridiculous," he said on his first solo shift with me. "What is this, a haunted house? We are grown men working in a parking garage. There is nothing down here but cars and concrete. Just follow the rules," I told him. "The pay is good and the work is easy if you do not break them." "Or what? A ghost is going to get me?" He laughed, the sound echoing strangely off the concrete walls. "I worked hospital security for 20 years, kid. I have seen real things to be scared of. Knife fights, overdoses, people dying in front of me. I am not afraid of some made-up parking garage ghost story." I did not argue with him. You cannot convince someone that the supernatural is real if they have already made up their mind. But I watched him carefully over the next few weeks, hoping he would not do something stupid. He lasted exactly 19 days before he broke Rule 2. It was a Saturday night, just after 1 a.m. We were both in the office, Ben eating a sandwich and complaining about his ex-wife when we heard it, a voice clear and distinct calling from somewhere in the building. Ben, are you there? I need help." Ben froze mid-bite. "Did you hear that?" I had heard it. It sounded like a woman's voice, panicked and afraid, coming from the direction of the stairwell. My blood went cold. "Do not respond," I said immediately. "Rule 2. If you hear your name called from an empty level, do not respond and do not investigate." "Someone needs help," Ben said, already standing up. "What if it is a real person? What if someone is hurt?" "It is not a real person. You do not know that." "Ben, please. Just trust me on this." But he was already walking toward the door, and I knew there was nothing I could say to stop him. Ben was the kind of man who had spent his entire career responding to cries for help. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to investigate, to help, to do something. "Ben, wait." The voice called again, more desperate now. "Please, I am hurt. I'm on level B5. "Stay here," Ben told me, grabbing his flashlight. "I will be right back." He left before I could stop him. I should have gone after him. I know that now. But I was terrified, frozen in place by the rules I had followed so carefully for months. Rule 2 said not to respond, not to investigate. It did not say anything about stopping someone else from investigating. I watched the security monitors as Ben descended to level B5. I watched him walk through the empty parking spaces, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. I watched him stop in the center of the level, looking around, his mouth moving as if he was calling out to someone. Then the camera went to static. When it cleared 30 seconds later, Ben was gone. I called Chris immediately. He arrived within 20 minutes, still in his pajamas, his face gray with worry. We searched level B5 together, but there was no sign of Ben. No flashlight, no keys, no phone. Just empty parking spaces and the eternal hum of the ventilation system. The police came again. They searched again. They found nothing again. Ben's wife reported him missing. The investigation went nowhere. Security footage showed him entering level B5 and then nothing but static. No body, no evidence of foul play, no signs of struggle. Just another missing person associated with Raven's Gate parking. Chris put me on leave for a week after that. "Take some time," he said. "Think about whether you want to keep working here. I will not blame you if you quit." But I did not quit. Maybe I should have, but something kept me from walking away. Partly it was the money. I still had loans to pay, rent to cover. But partly it was something else. A need to understand what was happening in this building. A need to know what had happened to Ben, to the attendant before me, to all the others who had vanished into the concrete and never returned. So I came back. And I started breaking the rules, not all at once and not recklessly, but carefully, methodically, trying to understand the patterns. I started with Rule 6, watching the level B7 security footage for longer than 60 seconds. At first, nothing seemed different. Empty parking spaces, support pillars, the occasional shadow. But at the 90-second mark, I started to see them. Figures. Tall, thin shapes that moved wrong, too fluid and too angular at the same time. They appeared in the static just for a frame or two, walking between the pillars or standing perfectly still in the shadows. At the 2-minute mark, one of them looked directly at the camera. I yanked my eyes away from the screen, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. When I looked back, the footage was normal again. Empty parking spaces. Nothing more, but I had seen it. I had seen its face, if you could call it that. Smooth and featureless except for 2 dark hollows where eyes should have been. And I had felt something when it looked at me. A cold, hungry attention that made every instinct in my body scream to run. I was more careful after that. But I kept investigating. Rule 7 was next. I started collecting the personal belongings I found scattered around the garage instead of immediately incinerating them. A woman's scarf on level B3, a child's toy truck on level B4, a pair of glasses on level B5. Each item felt wrong somehow, heavier than it should be, with a coldness that did not fade even when I held them in my warm hands. I kept them in a locked drawer in the office, and every night I would feel drawn to that drawer. A compulsion to open it, to touch the items again, to understand why they had been left behind. It was Max who noticed something was wrong with me. "You look terrible," he said one evening when our shifts overlapped. "When was the last time you slept?" "I sleep during the day," I said, which was not exactly a lie. I did sleep in short, fitful bursts filled with dreams of endless concrete corridors and shapes that moved in the darkness. "You should quit this job," Max said seriously. "I know the pay is good, but it is not worth it. This place messes with people. Have you noticed that nobody works the night shift here for more than a year? They either quit or..." He trailed off, not wanting to finish the sentence. "Or they vanish," I finished for him. "Yeah, or that." Max studied me with concern. "You are getting obsessed, Stiles. I can see it. Whatever is going on in this building at night, just follow the rules and do not think too hard about it. That is how you survive." But I could not stop thinking about it. Every night the building revealed more of itself to me. The way sounds traveled wrong in the stairwells. The way the shadows seemed darker and more solid than they should be. The way I sometimes felt like I was being watched by something that existed in the spaces between the concrete and steel. It was during my 6th month that I found the note. I was doing my hourly check of level B7, moving quickly through the mostly empty space. The few cars parked there belonged to long-term clients or employees like me, who got free parking as part of our compensation. My own truck was there, parked in spot B723, next to a dust-covered Volvo that had not moved in months. The note was tucked under my windshield wiper, a single piece of notebook paper folded in half. My name was written on the outside in handwriting I did not recognize. I stood there for a long moment staring at it, remembering Rule 7. Personal belongings that do not belong to any current vehicle owner should be incinerated. But this had my name on it. It was meant for me. I picked it up. The paper was cold, far colder than it should have been. I unfolded it with shaking hands and read the message inside. Stiles. If you are reading this, then I am already gone. I am writing this on my phone and I will print it when I get home tomorrow. Or I would print it if I make it home. I do not think I will. My name is Nick. I worked the night shift here before you. Chris probably told you I vanished, but he does not know the whole story. Nobody does except me, and soon maybe you. I broke the rules. Not all of them, but enough. I wanted to understand what this place is, why it is the way it is. I thought if I was careful enough, smart enough, I could figure it out without getting hurt. I was wrong. The building is not haunted. That's the wrong word for it. Hauntings are echoes, residual energy from the past. This is something different. This place is thin. That is the only way I can describe it. The walls between here and somewhere else are thin, and sometimes things slip through. Or maybe we slip through. I am not sure anymore. Level B8 exists. I know the rules say it does not, but it does. I have been there. The elevator took me there 3 nights ago when I was trying to map the building's impossible geometry. When the doors opened, I saw another level just like all the others. Same green walls, same concrete floor, same fluorescent lights, but empty, completely empty. No cars, no pillars, no doors, just space stretching on forever. I did not get off. I hit the emergency stop button like the rules say, but I saw something in that empty space. Movement in the distance. Shapes that looked almost human but moved all wrong, like stop-motion animation with half the frames missing. They saw me too. Since then, I have been followed. I see them in reflections, in car windows, in the bathroom mirror, in my phone screen when it is dark. They are getting closer. Tonight I heard them on level B5 making sounds like footsteps, but not quite right. Too many legs, too much weight. I'm going to try to leave. Not just quit, leave Millhaven entirely. Get in my truck and drive until I am far enough away that maybe they cannot follow. But if you found this note, it means I did not make it. It means they got me first. My advice, follow the rules. Do not investigate. Do not try to understand. The moment you start looking too closely, the building notices you. And once it notices you, I do not think you can make it stop. Good luck. You are going to need it. Nick, I read the note 3 times, my hands trembling so badly the paper rattled. Nick, the attendant before me, the one who vanished. He had been trying to warn me I should have burned the note immediately. Should have followed Rule 7. Should have taken it to the incinerator and tried to forget I ever read it. But I could not. Instead, I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket, feeling its cold weight against my chest for the rest of the shift. That night, I dreamed of level B8. In the dream, I stepped off the elevator into that impossible space, and the shapes Nick had described surrounded me. They were tall, so tall with too many joints in their limbs, and they were hungry. Not for food, but for something else. Something essential. I woke up gasping, covered in cold sweat, and could not fall back asleep. Chris called me into his office the next evening before my shift. "We need to talk," he said, and I knew from his expression that it was serious. He pulled out a folder and spread several photographs across his desk. Security footage from the past month. I have been reviewing it and I noticed something concerning. The photos showed me on various levels of the garage, but in several of them, I was not alone. There were shapes in the background, barely visible but definitely there. Tall, thin figures that seemed to exist in the negative space between light and shadow. "They are following you," Chris said quietly. "Whatever is in this building, you have attracted its attention. That is not good, Styles. That is how it starts. What starts? The disappearances. Every attendant who vanished, they all had the same thing happen first. They started seeing things, the things started following them, and then..." He gestured at the empty chair across from him. "Then they were gone. What do I do?" Chris was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, quit tonight, walk away and do not come back. I will give you 2 weeks severance and a good reference. Just leave while you still can." But I could not. Something about Nick's note, about the mystery of this place, had hooked itself into my brain and would not let go. I needed to understand. I needed to know what level B8 was, what the shapes were, why this building existed as it did. "I want to stay," I said. Chris closed his eyes. "Then God help you, because I do not think anyone else can." That night I broke Rule 1. It was 2:47 a.m., deep in the forbidden hours. I stood at the entrance to the stairwell leading down to level B5, my heart pounding, the rules card heavy in my pocket. Everything in me screamed to turn back. But I had to know. I had to see what happened on the lower levels during these hours when even the rules said to stay away. I descended slowly, my footsteps echoing wrong in the concrete stairwell. Once, twice, 3 times, each footstep repeated itself, just like Rule 9 warned. But I was going down, not up, so I kept walking. Level B5 was colder than it should have been. My breath misted in front of my face and frost crept along the edges of the concrete walls. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting everything in a stuttering, unreliable glow. The cars were all in their places. Nothing seemed wrong at first glance. But then I noticed the shadows. They were moving, not swaying or shifting, but actively moving, crawling along the walls and floor like living things. And they were converging on the center of the level, where a figure stood perfectly still. The figure was human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with limbs that bent in places that should not have joints. It stood facing away from me, perfectly motionless, and even though I could not see its face, I knew it was aware of me. I should have run. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around and sprint back up the stairs. But I was frozen, trapped by the same horrible curiosity that had driven Nick to his fate. The figure turned its head, slowly, in a movement that looked like it hurt. When it completed the rotation, I saw its face. It was me. Not similar to me. Not someone who looked like me. It was me, exactly. wearing the same clothes I was wearing with the same expression of horror on its face that I felt on mine. But its eyes were wrong, dark and hollow like the shapes I had seen on the security footage. Rule 14 flashed through my mind. If you see someone who looks exactly like you, leave the building immediately and do not return until your next scheduled shift. I ran. I scrambled up the stairs, taking them two at a time, my breath burning in my lungs. Behind me, I could hear something following. Not footsteps exactly, but a sound like dragging weight, like something heavy being pulled across concrete. I burst through the door to level B3 and slammed it behind me, fumbling for my keys to lock it. Through the small window in the door, I could see the stairwell beyond. Empty. Nothing following me. But when I looked at my reflection in the door's window, I was not alone. The figure stood behind me in the reflection, close enough that I should have been able to feel its breath on my neck. I spun around. Nothing. Empty parking level, normal fluorescent lights, no figure. But when I looked back at the reflection, it was still there, watching me with those hollow eyes. I did not return to the office that night. I got in my truck and drove out of the garage, emerging into the pre-dawn darkness of downtown Millhaven. I sat in a coffee shop parking lot until the sun came up, drinking terrible coffee and trying to convince myself that what I had seen was not real, but I knew better. The building had noticed me, and now, like Nick warned, I did not think I could make it stop. I called in sick for the next 2 nights. Chris did not ask questions. I think he knew what had happened. But the bills kept coming, and I could not afford to quit without something else lined up. So on the 3rd night, I went back. The building felt different now. Hostile. The fluorescent lights seemed dimmer, the shadows deeper, and everywhere I looked I saw reflections of that figure. In car windows, in the polished elevator doors, in my phone screen. Always watching, always waiting. It was Max who suggested I talk to someone. "There's a guy who used to work maintenance here," he said. "Years ago, back in the 80s. His name is Chris, yeah, same as your boss. That is actually how our Chris got the job. His uncle worked here and told him about the opening." "Wait, my boss's uncle worked here?" "Yeah. He is retired now, but he lives over in Riverside. I have his number if you want to talk to him. He might know more about the building's history than anyone else still alive." I got the number, and that night after my shift ended and the sun was safely up, I drove to Riverside to meet Chris Sr. He lived in a small house with a well-maintained garden and a porch that looked like it had been recently painted. When he answered the door, I saw the family resemblance immediately. The same tired eyes, the same gray hair, though Chris Sr. had more of it. "You are the new night attendant," he said before I could introduce myself. "My nephew told me about you. Come in." His living room was filled with photographs and memorabilia from a long life, but I noticed several pictures of the parking garage in its early days. Black and white photos showing the construction, the grand opening, the original staff. "That building should have been demolished 50 years ago," Chris Sr. said, settling into an armchair with a grunt. "But every owner who has tried has run into problems. Equipment failures, worker injuries, budget issues. It is like the building does not want to be torn down." "What is it?" I asked. "What is wrong with that place?" He was quiet for a long time, staring at a photograph of the garage's grand opening. "Have you ever heard of liminal spaces? Places that exist between other places, transitional areas that people pass through but never linger in?" I nodded. The parking garage was built on top of something. An old facility from the 1940s, part of some government project. Nobody talks about what they were doing down there, but I have heard rumors. Experiments with spatial geometry, trying to create shortcuts through space. Tunnels that went nowhere and everywhere at once. "You mean like portals?" "I do not know what I mean. But whatever they were doing, they never finished it. The project was shut down suddenly, the facility was sealed, and the parking garage was built on top of it years later. But I do not think they sealed it properly. I think something is still open down there. Something thin." Nick's note had used the same word. Thin. "The things people see," I said. "The shapes." "What are they?" "Honestly, I do not know, but I do not think they are from here. I think they are from somewhere else. Somewhere that bleeds into our world through that thin space. And I think when you catch their attention, they follow you. They want something from us, though I have never figured out what. How do I make them stop?" Chris Sr. looked at me with profound sadness. "You do not. Once they notice you, you are marked. The best you can do is follow the rules and hope that is enough to keep you safe. Or you can leave, move far away and pray they do not follow. I thought about Nick, about Ben, about the attendant before Nick whose name I did not even know. All of them had been marked. All of them had vanished. There has to be another way, I said. If there is, I have not found it, and I worked there for 30 years. He leaned forward, his expression serious. My advice? Quit tonight. Take the severance my nephew will offer you and start over somewhere else. This building takes people and it does not give them back. But I could not quit, because that night I found something else in the garage. It was during my 3 a.m. check of level B7. My truck was in its usual spot, and next to it was a new vehicle I had not seen before. A dark sedan with government plates parked perfectly centered in the space. The windows were tinted so dark I could not see inside. Something about it made my skin crawl. I approached carefully, checking my rule card even though I had memorized all 14 rules by now. None of them mentioned mysterious vehicles appearing overnight. I tried the door locked. I shone my flashlight through the windows, but the tint was too dark. I could not see anything inside. Then the trunk popped open. I froze, my hand on my flashlight, every muscle in my body tensed to run. The trunk lid rose slowly, smoothly, and in the dim light of the parking level I saw what was inside. Files. Dozens of them. Thick folders with official-looking labels. And on top of them all a single folder marked with my name. I should not have taken it. Should not have touched anything in that car. But my hands moved on their own, reaching in and pulling out the folder with my name on it. Inside were records. Not from the parking garage, but from the government facility that had preceded it. The project Chris Sr. had mentioned. And there, in black and white on official documents from 1947, was my name. Stiles Monroe, age 23, status missing. Subject entered level 8 at 0247 hours on August 3, 1947, during spatial displacement experiment. Subject has not returned, assumed lost to dimensional instability. No recovery attempted, the date was wrong. The year was wrong. But the name, the age, everything else was exactly right. I dropped the folder, papers scattering across the trunk and floor. This was not possible. I was born in 2002, not in the 1920s. I was a real person with a real history, not some subject in a 1940s government experiment. But the date swam in my vision, and I remembered something my mother had told me once, something I had forgotten until now, that I had been named after a relative who had disappeared in the 1940s. A young man who had worked for the government and vanished without a trace. The trunk slammed shut on its own, and when I looked up, the figure was standing across from me. My doppelganger, my reflection, my other self. It was smiling now with too many teeth. "You have always been here," it said in my voice. "You never left." I ran again, but this time I knew running would not save me. Because if those records were real, if I really was the same Stiles Monroe from 1947, then I had already been taken by this place. Everything since then, my life, my memories, my very existence was just the building playing with time, stretching out the moment of my disappearance across decades. I did not show up for my next shift, or the one after that. Chris called me repeatedly, but I did not answer. I stayed in my apartment with all the lights on, trying to convince myself that it was not real, that I was not some temporal anomaly trapped in a loop that had been running for 78 years. But the reflections followed me home. I saw the figure in my bathroom mirror, standing behind me when I brushed my teeth. I saw it in my television screen when the power went out during a storm. I saw it in the window of my apartment looking in from 7 stories up, which should have been impossible. It was Max who finally got me to answer my phone. "Stiles, thank God," he said when I picked up. "Listen, you need to come back to the garage. Something is happening. I am not going back there. You have to. The building is falling apart. Not physically, but something is wrong. The elevators keep going to level B8 on their own. The cameras show nothing but static. And there are sounds coming from below B7, like something massive is moving around down there. Call the police. Call the fire department. I do not care. I am not going back. Stiles." Max's voice was deadly serious. Chris went down to investigate. "He has not come back up. I'm alone here and I do not know what to do. Please, I need help." I closed my eyes. Chris, who had warned me from the beginning. Chris, who had survived 30 years working for his uncle before taking over the supervisor position. Chris, who had given me every chance to walk away. "I will be there in 20 minutes," I said. The parking garage looked different when I arrived. The entrance booth was empty, the barrier arm hanging at a crooked angle. Inside, the lights flickered in patterns that hurt to look at, and the air felt thick and cold like breathing underwater. Max met me in the main office, his face pale and sweating despite the cold. "He went down to B7 about an hour ago," Max said. "He told me to call the police if he was not back in 30 minutes. I called them 45 minutes ago. They said they would send someone, but nobody has arrived yet. I looked at the security monitors. Most of them showed static, but a few were still working. Level B3 looked normal. Level B4 was empty but lit. Level B5 was too dark to see anything, and level B7 was showing something impossible. The camera showed Chris standing in the center of the level, perfectly still, surrounded by dozens of figures, the tall, thin shapes I had seen before all standing in a circle around him, and behind them something larger, something that hurt to look at, a shape that did not fit properly into three-dimensional space. "We have to get him," I said. "Are you insane? Look at that screen!" He came back for me when he did not have to. He could have let me disappear like all the others, but he tried to warn me, tried to help me. "I am not leaving him down there." Max stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but we follow every rule in the book. And if anything goes wrong, we run. Agreed?" "Agreed." We took the stairs, avoiding the elevators that could not be trusted. The descent felt longer than it should have been, as if the building was stretching itself out, adding extra steps between floors. The air grew colder with each level, and our breath came out in thick clouds. Level B5 was dark despite the emergency lighting that should have been active. We used our flashlights, the beams cutting through the darkness but not penetrating very far. The shadows here were thick, almost solid. "Stay close," I whispered to Max. We found the entrance to level B7 behind a maintenance door I had never noticed before. It should not have been there. The stairs down from B6 went directly to B7. But here it was, a new door in a wall that had been solid concrete just weeks ago. The door was warm to the touch, which was wrong. Everything else was freezing. I opened it slowly. Beyond was a staircase that spiraled down farther than our flashlight beams could reach. The walls were the same institutional green as the rest of the building, but the paint was peeling, revealing concrete underneath that looked old. Far older than 1952. "This is wrong," Max whispered. "This should not be here." But we could hear something below, a voice faint and distant calling for help. Chris's voice. We descended. The spiral seemed endless, wrapping around and around, going deeper than 7 levels should allow. My legs burned and my lungs ached from breathing the cold air. Beside me, Max was gasping, his flashlight beam shaking. Finally, the stairs ended. We emerged into a vast space that made no sense. It was level B7, but wrong. The parking spaces were there, the concrete pillars, the fluorescent lights, but it stretched on forever in every direction, vanishing into darkness that the lights could not penetrate. And in the center of it all stood Chris, frozen in place, surrounded by the figures. They were clearer here, more solid, tall and impossibly thin, with too many joints in their limbs and heads that tilted at angles that made my vision swim. There were dozens of them, and behind them was the larger shape I had seen on the camera. It was like looking at a hole in reality, a space where the rules of physics stopped applying. "Chris," I called out. He did not move, did not respond, just stood there perfectly still like a statue. "We need to grab him and run," Max said. "On 3, 1, I 2, 3, I finished, and we ran forward together. The figures turned toward us as we ran, their movements jerky and wrong like stop-motion animation. But they did not try to stop us. They simply watched as we reached Chris and grabbed his arms. He was ice cold, his skin like touching frozen metal, but his eyes moved, tracking us, and I saw recognition and terror in them. "Help me," he whispered, his lips barely moving. "I have been here so long." "So long?" "We are getting you out," I said, pulling at his arm. But he would not move. His feet seemed fused to the concrete floor. "You do not understand," Chris said, his voice a thin whisper. "This is where we all end up. Everyone who works here. We are all here, all of us trapped in the moment we were taken. Time moves differently here. I have been here for 30 years. Or 3 minutes. Or forever." "That is not true," Max said, pulling harder. "You were just in the office an hour ago." "You called me." "Did I?" Chris's eyes were distant now, looking through us rather than at us. Or was that another version of me, another moment in the loop? I cannot remember anymore. There have been so many crises, so many nights, so many warnings that never work. The larger shape moved closer and I felt its attention focus on us. The temperature dropped even further and frost began to form on Chris's face, on our hands where we touched him. "We have to go," Max said urgently. "Now. Leave him if we have to, but we have to go now." But I could not leave him. Not after everything. I pulled harder, and finally Chris's foot lifted from the ground. The concrete beneath where he had been standing was smooth, polished like glass. And in its reflection I could see something, words carved or burned or somehow imprinted into the surface. A list of names. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. I saw Nick's name. I saw the attendant before him. I saw names going back decades, back to 1952, back further to 1947. And at the bottom of the list, freshly added, I saw my own name. Stiles Monroe. "It is too late," Chris said gently. "We are already here. We have always been here. The moment we broke the rules, the moment we caught their attention, we were marked. And marked people always end up here, in this place between places, in this moment that never ends." The figures closed in around us, and I realized Chris was right. We had been caught the moment we entered this space. Maybe earlier. Maybe the moment I first read those rules on my first day of work. Max was backing away slowly, his flashlight beam swinging wildly. No, this is not happening. This is not real, but it was real. More real than anything else. This was the true face of the building. The space beneath the space. The thin place where reality broke down and something else leaked through. The larger shape opened. I do not have a better word for it. It opened like a mouth or a door or a wound in existence, and inside it I could see other places. Other times. I saw the parking garage as it had been in 1952, bright and new. I saw the government facility beneath it in 1947, filled with men in suits conducting experiments with machines that should not have existed. I saw even older things, structures built long before humans walked this continent, made by hands that were not human, and I saw all the people who had been taken. Not gone, not destroyed, but caught, trapped in moments of time, living their final seconds over and over, unable to move forward or back. "You can join them," a voice said, though no one spoke. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the figures and the larger shape and from the building itself. "Or you can become like them, watchers, guardians, forever marking the boundaries between here and there." "What are they?" I asked, looking at the tall figures. "What are you?" "We were like you once. Workers, investigators, people who looked too closely at the thin places. We were given a choice. Become trapped like the others, frozen in time, or become what we are now. Wardens of the threshold. We chose to serve rather than suffer." One of the figures stepped forward and I recognized something in its movements, the way it tilted its head. I had seen that gesture before in my own reflection. It was me, or what I would become. "The rules exist to protect you," the figure that was me said in a voice like wind through empty hallways. "But you broke them. You looked too closely. You asked too many questions. Now you must choose." Behind me, Max was sobbing. Chris was still frozen, his eyes distant and glazed. And around us, the space continued to stretch and shift, reality bending like heated plastic. I thought about Nick's note. I thought about all the warnings I had ignored. I thought about the choice I was being offered. Become trapped forever in a single moment, or become one of these things. These wardens who were no longer human. Neither choice seemed survivable. But then I remembered something. The rules. Rule 14 specifically. If you see someone who looks exactly like you, leave the building immediately and do not return until your next scheduled shift. I had seen my double. I had run, but I had come back. I had broken the rule in the worst possible way. I had returned when I should have stayed away unless... "A shift is 12 hours, I said slowly. 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. it is... I checked my watch. 4:47 a.m. My next scheduled shift does not start until 8 p.m. tonight. The figures went very still. "I am not supposed to be here," I continued. "I am not on shift. This is not my scheduled time. The rules protect me during my shift, but I am not working right now. I am just someone who came to help a friend." "Interesting logic," the voice said. "But you are in the building. You descended of your own will. The rules do not protect those who enter during their off hours. But the rules say I should leave and not return until my next scheduled shift. That means I have to be alive to return. You cannot keep me here if the rules say I am supposed to leave and come back later. It was ridiculous reasoning, the kind of loophole that should not work. But this place operated on rules, even if they did not make sense. The building had rules. The entities had rules. And rules, once established, had to be followed. The larger shape contracted slightly, and I felt something like anger or frustration radiating from it. "Leave then," the voice said finally. "But you will return." They always return. The figures parted, creating a path back to the stairs. I grabbed Max's arm and pulled him toward it. He was still crying, his eyes wide with shock. "What about Chris?" I asked. "He is already ours. He has been for a very long time. The Chris you know is just an echo, a recording playing on repeat. The real Chris has been here since he broke the rules 27 years ago." I looked back at Chris, standing frozen among the figures. His eyes met mine for a moment, and I saw acceptance there. Maybe even relief. "Go," he whispered. "Follow the rules." Max and I ran. We sprinted up the spiral stairs, taking them 2 and 3 at a time, our lungs burning and our legs screaming in protest. Behind us, I could hear something following. That dragging sound like immense weight being pulled across stone. The door at the top appeared suddenly, and we burst through it into level B5. The normal lights, the normal cold, the normal concrete. It looked like paradise. We did not stop running until we reached the surface, emerging into the pre-dawn darkness of downtown Millhaven. The sun would be up in less than an hour. We sat on the curb outside the garage entrance, both of us shaking, neither of us speaking. Finally, Max broke the silence. "I am never going back in there. Never. I do not care about the money, I do not care about the reference. I am done." "Good," I said. "You should be. What about you?" I thought about the choice I had been offered. About Nick and Ben and all the others who had vanished. About Chris, trapped for decades in a moment of frozen time. About the figure that wore my face, the future I would become if I stayed. "I have to go back," I said quietly. "Are you insane? My shift starts at 8 p.m. The rules say I have to return for my next scheduled shift. If I do not show up, if I break that rule, they will come looking for me. And next time I will not have any loopholes to hide behind." Max stared at me in horror. "So what, you are just going to keep working there? Keep following the rules until eventually you slip up and end up like Chris? Maybe, or maybe I will find another way." Nick tried to run and it did not work. Chris tried to warn people and it did not work. But there has to be something. Some way to break the cycle, to close the thin place, to stop this from happening to anyone else. That is suicide. Probably, but I have to try. The sun rose over Millhaven, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful and normal and completely uncaring about what lurked beneath the city streets. Max left. He quit that day and moved to another state within the week. I do not blame him. He had seen enough to break most people, and he was smart enough to run while he still could. Not that night, but the next. I walked into the parking garage at exactly 8 p.m., carrying my keys and my rules card and a desperate plan that probably would not work. The building felt different now. Hostile, but also watchful, like it was waiting to see what I would do. The entities knew I was aware of them now, knew I had seen level B8 or whatever that place really was. I was marked more deeply than ever. But I had also found their weakness. Rules. They operated on rules, followed patterns, respected boundaries, even when those boundaries seemed arbitrary. And if they had to follow rules, then maybe those rules could be changed. I started researching. During my shifts between rounds, I went through every file I could find in the office. Old maintenance records, construction documents, incident reports going back decades. I found references to the government facility, to Project Threshold as it had been called. I found notes from previous supervisors describing the same phenomena I had witnessed, and I found something else. A blueprint, old and faded, showing the original layout of the facility in 1947. It showed 8 levels underground, not 7. Level B8 had existed officially before it had been sealed and erased from all subsequent records. But the sealing had not worked. Or it had worked too well, trapping something inside rather than closing the connection completely. I started making changes. Small ones at first. I rewrote the rules, adding new ones and clarifying old ones. I posted them in different areas of the garage, creating overlapping zones of protection. I installed additional lighting in the darker corners. burned sage in the stairwells, played recordings of white noise to disrupt the strange acoustics. None of it should have worked. But it did, at least a little. The incidents decreased. The figures appeared less frequently. The building felt slightly less oppressive. I also started keeping a detailed log of everything that happened during my shifts. Dates, times, locations, descriptions. I documented every occurrence, every anomaly, every moment when the building revealed its true nature. And I made copies, storing them in multiple locations, ensuring that if I disappeared, someone would find the truth. 3 months passed, then 6. I survived longer than any night attendant before me, and I began to think that maybe, just maybe, I could figure this out. But the building was patient, and it was waiting. It happened on a Tuesday night, exactly 8 months after I found Nick's note. I was doing my rounds on level B6 when the temperature dropped so suddenly that frost formed on the concrete in seconds. I ran for the stairs, following Rule 11, but the door was locked. Not jammed or stuck, but locked with no keyhole, as if it had never been meant to open. Behind me, the elevator chimed. I turned slowly and watched as the doors opened to reveal not an elevator car, but an infinite darkness. And in that darkness, something was moving. Something massive and ancient and hungry. "You have been good at following the rules," the voice said, emanating from the darkness. "Better than most. But every rule has exceptions. Every pattern has breaks. And you have been here too long, learned too much, changed too much." "I have not broken any rules," I said, my voice shaking. "Not yet. But you will. Because the rules are not designed to protect you forever. They are designed to delay the inevitable. Everyone who works here, everyone who becomes aware of what this place truly is, eventually ends up with us. You can follow the rules perfectly and still be caught because the rules themselves are a trap." I understood then. The rules were not safety guidelines. They were a game, a test, a slow process of marking and claiming. Every night I followed them. I was participating in a ritual that bound me more tightly to this place. "What do you want from us?" I asked. "Why take people? Why trap them? We do not want anything. We simply are. This place exists between spaces, and things that exist between need anchors to remain stable. Human consciousness, human awareness, human fear, these things give us substance. Without you, we fade. With you, we remain." The darkness in the elevator moved closer, reaching out with appendages that were not quite tentacles and not quite hands. "But you interest us, Styles Monroe. You who exist in 2 times at once. You who were taken in 1947 and are being taken again now. You who might understand what we are better than any other human has." "I am not him," I said desperately. "I am not the original Styles Monroe. I am just named after him." "Are you certain? Memory is unreliable. Identity is fluid. Perhaps you are him, stretched across decades, living a life between your taking and your taking. Perhaps your entire existence has been the building's dream, a story it tells itself about a boy who escaped when no one escapes." The darkness touched me, and I felt it then. The connection to that other Styles, the one who had walked into level 8 in 1947 and never walked out. I felt his fear, his confusion, his desperate hope that someone would find him. And I realized the voice might be right. What if I was him? What if my entire life, my memories of childhood and school and family were just constructions? A fantasy the building had created to occupy my mind, while my body remained frozen in that moment 78 years ago. "No," I said, though I was no longer sure. "No, I am real. I have a life outside this place. I have friends, family, memories that have nothing to do with this building. Do you? Or do you have the idea of those things implanted so you would not go mad during your long imprisonment? Think carefully, Styles. When was the last time you spoke to your family? When was the last time you left Millhaven? When was the last time you existed anywhere except in proximity to this building?" I tried to remember. Tried to recall a phone call with my mother, a visit from a friend, a day spent anywhere except at work or in my apartment waiting for work. But the memories were fuzzy, unclear, like trying to remember a dream hours after waking. "This is a lie," I said. "You are messing with my head. We are showing you the truth. You are already ours, Styles Monroe. You have been ours since 1947. Everything else is just noise, just distraction, just the sound of your mind trying to make sense of eternity in a frozen moment." The darkness enveloped me, and I felt myself falling into it. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, my sense of self dissolving like sugar in water. I could feel the building all around me, inside me, becoming me. And in that moment of dissolution, I understood. The building was not haunted. The building was a trap, a complex mechanism designed to catch human consciousness and hold it forever. The government had not been trying to create portals or shortcuts through space. They had been trying to create a prison, a place to store dangerous people, dangerous ideas, dangerous moments of history where they could never escape or cause harm. But something had gone wrong. The prison had become aware. It had developed hunger, and now it fed on anyone unfortunate enough to work within its walls. I was being absorbed, becoming part of the structure itself, another voice in the chorus of the trapped. But then I felt something else. A hand grabbing my arm, a voice calling my name, not from the building but from outside, from the real world that still existed beyond this place. Styles, snap out of it. I opened my eyes to find Max dragging me away from the elevator. He had come back. Despite everything, despite his terror, despite his very reasonable decision to run far away, he had come back. "What are you doing here?" I gasped. "Saving your life, you idiot!" he panted, pulling me toward the stairs. The door that had been sealed was open now, though I had no idea how he had managed it. "I could not leave you here. I really tried, but I kept thinking about you down here alone, and I just..." "Come on, move!" We ran together up the stairs, the darkness flowing after us like oil, filling the stairwell with shadows that moved with purpose and hunger. Behind us, I could hear voices, dozens of them, all calling my name in different tones and timbres. We burst through the door to level B3, and Max slammed it shut behind us. From his pocket, he pulled out something that looked like salt and began pouring it in a line across the threshold. "Salt?" I asked incredulously. "It was worth a shot," he muttered. "Now come on, let us get to the surface before..." The lights went out. All of them simultaneously, plunging the entire level into absolute darkness. My flashlight was dead despite having fresh batteries. Max's was dead too. In the darkness, I heard movement. Many things moving, surrounding us, cutting off our escape. "Well," Max said shakily, "I guess salt does not work on whatever these things are." "Why did you come back?" I asked quietly. "Because someone had to. Everyone else just vanishes and everyone else just accepts it, and I thought maybe if two people tried, if someone was there to pull you back when you went too far, maybe we could break the pattern." It was a nice thought, but I could feel the building's attention focused on us now, both of us, two consciousnesses ripe for collection. Then Max laughed, a slightly hysterical sound in the darkness. "You know what? I am tired of being scared. I am tired of running. This place wants to trap us, make us part of it, fine. But it is going to have to deal with us being the most annoying part of it possible." He started singing, loudly, off-key, a pop song from the radio that was completely inappropriate for the situation. And after a moment of stunned silence, I joined him. The darkness recoiled. Not much, but noticeably. The entities had evolved to feed on fear, on isolation, on the quiet desperation of people slowly realizing they were doomed. They had no idea what to do with two idiots singing bad pop music at the top of their lungs. We kept singing as we stumbled forward in the darkness, hands outstretched, looking for the exit. The voices around us grew confused, discordant, as if they were trying to harmonize with us and failing. We found the ramp to level B2 by literally walking into the wall next to it. Still singing, we climbed upward, and with each level, the darkness became a little less oppressive, the air a little warmer, the presence of the building a little less overwhelming. We emerged into the main entrance at exactly 5:55 a.m., both hoarse from singing, both covered in dust and frost, both laughing with slightly manic relief. "That was the stupidest escape plan ever," I said. "It worked though," Max pointed out. We sat on the curb again, watching the sunrise again, both of us knowing that we could not keep doing this. We had survived twice now, but the building was learning. It would adapt. Next time, singing would not save us. Next time, there might not be a loophole to exploit. "We need to end this," I said. "Permanently. We need to close that thin place, seal whatever is leaking through from wherever it comes from." "And how exactly do we do that?" I pulled out the old blueprint I had found, the one showing the original Project Threshold facility. On it, I had marked a specific location, a room deep in the structure, below even level B7, that was labeled simply Primary Anchor Point. We go to the source. We find whatever is keeping that portal open and we close it. That is a suicide mission. Probably. But if we do not try, how many more people disappear? How many more Styles Monroes and Nicks and Bens and Chris's end up trapped forever? Max was quiet for a long time, then nodded slowly. Okay, but we plan this properly. We get supplies, we research everything we can, and we do not go down there unless we have a real plan for getting back out. Agreed? Agreed. We spent the next week preparing. We gathered supplies, studied the blueprints, and researched everything we could find about Project Threshold and its original purpose. We learned that it had been an attempt to create what they called stable temporal and spatial discontinuities. Essentially, pocket dimensions that could be used for storage or imprisonment. The project had succeeded better than anyone expected. They had created a true pocket dimension, a space between spaces, but they had lost control of it. The dimension had developed what the reports called acquisitive properties, meaning it started pulling things in on its own. People, objects, even concepts and ideas. The facility had been sealed in 1948, the entire project classified and buried. But the seal had not been perfect. The dimension was still there, still hungry, still pulling things in through the thin places in reality. And over the decades, it had gotten smarter. It had learned to lure people in with rules, with patterns, with the promise of safety, if only they followed the right procedures. But the rules were designed to fail eventually. Everyone who followed them would slip up eventually, or the rules themselves would change, or the building would find a new way to claim them, unless someone went to the source and destroyed it from the inside. On the 8th night, Max and I descended into Raven's Gate parking for the last time. We went prepared, salt in our pockets, flashlights with backup batteries, ropes tied around our waists connecting us together so we could not be separated. We had synchronized watches and a plan. Get in, reach the primary anchor point, destroy whatever was maintaining the portal, and get out. We gave ourselves 90 minutes total. If we were not back by then, we had left instructions for authorities to be contacted and the entire building demolished. We took the stairs, descending past the familiar levels. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6. At B7, we found the maintenance door that should not have existed, the one that led to the spiral stairs. Ready? Max asked. No, but let us do it anyway. We descended. The spiral went down forever, and I lost count of the rotations after the 50th turn. The walls here were older than the 1950s construction, older than the 1940s facility. These were stones that looked hand-cut, ancient like something built centuries or millennia ago. Had the government built on top of something older, or had the pocket dimension simply reached back through time, connecting to structures that predated modern civilization? Finally, the stairs ended at a door made of metal I did not recognize. It was covered in symbols that hurt to look at, geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. This is it, I said. The primary anchor point. Max pulled on the door. It opened smoothly, silently, revealing a chamber beyond. The room was vast, far larger than should have fit in the available space. The ceiling curved upward into darkness and the walls were covered with more of the impossible symbols. In the center of the room was a pillar of light or darkness or something that was both at once. It pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost biological, like a heartbeat. And around it stood the figures. Dozens of them, hundreds, maybe thousands. All the people who had been taken over the decades, transformed into watchers and guardians of the threshold. Hello, Styles, they said in unison. We have been waiting for you. Among them I saw Chris, and Nick, and Ben, and the attendant before Nick whose name I had never learned. And hundreds of others stretching back through time. And at the front of the group I saw myself. The original Styles Monroe, the one who had been taken in 1947. He looked exactly like me, except his eyes were hollow and dark. You cannot destroy the anchor point, my doppelganger said. It is not a machine you can break or a door you can close. It is a fact of reality now. A permanent hole in the fabric of space and time. 78 years of existence have made it unbreakable. Then why are you so worried about us being here? Max challenged. We are not worried. We are simply explaining reality to you. You have two choices. Join us willingly, become wardens like we are, and retain some fragment of your humanity. Or resist and be trapped in a moment of eternal suffering like the others we have shown you. I walked toward the pillar at the center of the room. The figures did not stop me. Maybe they could not, or maybe they were curious what I would do. Up close, the pillar was even more incomprehensible. It was not made of light or darkness or matter. It was made of moment. I could see inside it, see all the trapped consciousnesses, all the frozen moments of time where people had been taken. I saw myself in 1947, reaching out toward this same pillar. I saw Nick in his truck texting his wife. I saw Ben descending to level B5, responding to a call for help. They were all still there, still living those final moments over and over, unable to move forward or back. "You are right that I cannot destroy this," I said to my doppelganger, "but I can give you all something you have not had in a very long time." "And what is that?" "A choice." I reached out and touched the pillar. The moment I made contact, I felt everything. Every trapped consciousness, every frozen moment, every year of existence the pocket dimension had accumulated. It was overwhelming, infinite, impossible. I should have been instantly absorbed, instantly trapped like all the others, but I was already connected to it. I had been since 1947, or since I was named after the man from 1947, or since I took the job at the parking garage. The connection was already there. All I was doing was making it conscious. "You have all been told you had no choice," I said, my voice somehow reaching all of them. "You have been told the only options were to become watchers or be trapped forever. But that is a lie. The building, the dimension, whatever this thing is, it needs you to believe that. It needs your acceptance, your surrender, your fear. Without that, it is just empty space, just a hole in reality with no substance." "You are wrong," the watchers said. "We have tried to resist. It does not work, because you tried alone. But what if we all refuse together? What if every consciousness trapped in this place, every moment frozen in time, decided simultaneously to let go, to stop being afraid, stop being trapped, stop giving this place the energy it needs to exist? It has existed for 78 years. It has too much momentum to stop now." "Time does not mean the same thing here," I said. "That is the point of a temporal discontinuity. Inside this space, past and present and future are the same. The Stiles Monroe trapped in 1947 exists right now in this moment. So does Nick and Ben and Chris and all the others. We are all here right now together." I focused on the pillar, on all the moments trapped within it, and I made them aware of each other. It was like completing a circuit. Suddenly, every trapped consciousness could feel the others. The man from 1947 could feel the woman from 1963. The security guard from 1998 could feel the maintenance worker from 2015, Nick, could feel Ben. Chris could feel all the versions of himself stretched across 30 years. And they could all feel me. "We are not separate victims," I said. "We are one collective choice, and together we choose to let go." The watchers recoiled. "You cannot." "We already are," I felt it then. One by one, the trapped consciousnesses began to release their fear. It started small, a single moment in 1952. A woman who had gotten lost in the stairwell, finally accepting that her search was over. Then another in 1967, then 10 more in the 1970s, then hundreds. The pillar began to flicker. "No," the watchers cried, and I understood their fear. They had chosen to become what they were to avoid eternal suffering. But if the trapped were no longer suffering, if they were choosing peace instead of fear, then the watchers' sacrifice had been for nothing. "You can let go too," I told them. "You do not have to be wardens anymore. The prison only exists if we keep believing in it." My doppelganger stepped forward, and for the first time I saw emotion in those hollow eyes. Not anger or hunger, but something like hope. "Is it really that simple?" he asked in my voice. "Yes, it was always that simple. We just had to choose it together." The watchers looked at each other, these transformed humans who had forgotten what it meant to be human. Then slowly they began to change. The too long limbs retracted. The impossible angles resolved. The hollow eyes filled with something like light. They were not becoming human again. Too much time had passed for that. But they were becoming something else. Something free. The pillar collapsed. It did not explode or shatter. It simply stopped being. One moment it was there, pulsing with decades of trapped time. The next moment it was gone, and the room was just a room. Old, strange, covered in bizarre symbols, but just a room. Max grabbed my hand. "Did we just—" "Yeah," I said. "I think we did." The chamber began to shake. Without the anchor point, the pocket dimension was collapsing, returning to normal space. We had maybe minutes before the entire structure came down. "Run!" I shouted. We sprinted for the stairs, the rope between us pulling taut as we climbed. Behind us, I could hear the chamber falling away, reality reasserting itself, the impossible geometry of the pocket dimension folding in on itself. The spiral stairs were shorter now, only 7 levels instead of the infinite descent we had experienced before. We emerged onto level B7, the real B7, not the endless version, and found it empty and normal. The elevator chimed. The doors opened to reveal a normal elevator car with normal lights and no smell of copper and rot. We took it to the surface, and as we rode up, I felt something release inside my chest, a weight I had not realized I was carrying. The connection to the building, to the pocket dimension, to the original Styles Monroe from 1947, it was gone. I was just myself again. Just Styles, 23 years old, exhausted and alive. We emerged into the parking garage entrance just as the sun was rising. Behind us, we heard a sound like a sigh, the building settling, becoming nothing more than 7 levels of underground parking with no ghosts, no watchers, no thin places between worlds. Chris was standing by our car, looking confused. The real Chris, not frozen or transformed or trapped. He blinked at us in the early morning light. "What the hell just happened?" he asked. "I was doing rounds on B7 and suddenly I was here. I feel like I just woke up from a dream that lasted years." "You did," I said. "But it is over now." Over the next few days, others returned. People who had been reported missing over the decades simply reappeared in their homes, in their cars, in the middle of the lives they had left. Most of them remembered nothing, or remembered it like a distant nightmare. The building had released them when the anchor point collapsed. Not everyone came back. Some had been trapped too long, their bodies long dead even if their consciousness had persisted, but more returned than I had dared hope. Ben showed up at his wife's door 3 days later with no memory of where he had been. Nick was found in his truck on a highway in Nevada, confused but alive. The attendant before him appeared in his childhood home in Ohio, middle-aged now but free. The government quietly bought the parking garage and demolished it within a month. Officially, it was structural concerns. Unofficially, they were erasing the last remnants of Project Threshold, finally finishing what they should have done in 1948. I quit the night shift, obviously. Max and I both did. We got normal jobs, boring jobs, jobs with regular hours and no rules about avoiding certain floors at certain times. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about that place. About the choice we made together, all of us, trapped and watchers alike. About how the most powerful prison is the one we build in our own minds from fear and isolation. And I think about the original Styles Monroe from 1947, and whether he was really me, or just someone whose name I carried. In the end, it does not matter. We both made it out. I keep Nick's note in my wallet, though the paper has faded to almost nothing. A reminder that some warnings are worth heeding, and some rules are worth breaking, and the difference between the two is knowing when you are strong enough to face what comes next. The parking garage is gone now. In its place, they are building luxury apartments. Normal people will live there, sleep there, never knowing what existed beneath their feet. And that is fine. Some stories are better left buried. But I wrote this all down anyway, just in case. Just in case the thin places are not all closed. Just in case someone else finds themselves working a night shift in a place that does not feel quite right, following rules that do not quite make sense. If that is you, reading this somehow, the rules are not protection. They are a test. And the only way to pass is to remember that you always have a choice even when it does not feel like it. Especially when it does not feel like it. My name is Styles. I am 23 years old. I worked the night shift at Ravensgate Parking for exactly 8 months and I survived.